Hey, welcome back to the channel. And if this is your first time here, welcome. You picked the perfect moment to show up. Because today we're talking about something that has had ARMY all over the world absolutely losing their minds. Not just about BTS's comeback after nearly 4 years. Not just about the album ARIRANG that exploded across every corner of this planet the second it dropped. We're talking about an honest, unfiltered confession from one of the most powerful music producers on the planet, DIPLO, about what he discovered inside the studio with BTS, and specifically about Park Jimin, who left even a music veteran of DIPLO'S caliber genuinely stunned. Ready? Get comfortable. This is not gossip. This is fact. And it all went down just weeks ago. So before we get into the heart of it, we need to talk about who DIPLO actually is, because that's what makes everything he said so incredibly significant. His real name is Thomas Wesley Pence, but the world knows him simply as DIPLO, DJ, producer, composer, and the creative mind behind the legendary Major Lazer. Over a career spanning more than 3 decades, he has worked with nearly every major name you can think of: Beyoncé, Justin Bieber, Madonna, Shakira, Bad Bunny, Usher, Britney Spears, Billie Eilish, Blackpink. The list goes on. This is not just any producer. This is an architect of global pop sound. So when someone like DIPLO speaks about an artist he collaborated with, the music world listens. And what he had to say about BTS, specifically in the context of their comeback album ARIRANG, released on March 20th, 2026, genuinely rattled the international music industry. DIPLO spent roughly 2 months inside Conway Studios in Los Angeles, working intensively alongside all 7 members of BTS. Together, they sifted through somewhere between 80 and 100 tracks just to arrive at the final 14. And when he came out of that experience, what he had to say was anything but ordinary. February 9th, 2026. DIPLO was at the 2026 Fanatics Super Bowl party, one of the most glamorous events on the American entertainment calendar. When TMZ caught up with him on the red carpet, nobody could have predicted that his answers were about to trend across social media for days. In a tone that was completely genuine, no fake hype, no PR spin, DIPLO said he felt lucky. Lucky. A man who has spent 30 years at the top of the music industry, who has worked with practically every legend alive, said he felt lucky to be trusted by BTS. Let that sink in. And then he dropped the line that broke the internet. He called ARIRANG the craziest album ever, and said it was going to shock the world. Those words detonated immediately. Screenshots and clips of DIPLO'S comments spread like wildfire. ARMY, who had already waited nearly 4 years for BTS's comeback after each member completed their mandatory South Korean military service, suddenly felt like they'd been hit with a jolt of adrenaline the size of a stadium. But that wasn't all DIPLO said. He went further, offering something far more specific and meaningful, a direct observation about how BTS actually works in the studio. He said they were so hands-on, so creative, that he couldn't believe it. Can't believe it. A man who has seen everything, worked with everyone, and he genuinely could not believe the level of creativity and hands-on involvement BTS brought to their own music. That's not flattery. That's real shock from someone whose standards are impossibly high. Now here's the part that made every single ARMY absolutely erupt. When DIPLO sat down with Billboard for an in-depth interview after ARIRANG exploded up the charts, he revealed something fascinating about the creative process inside the studio. While the BTS team was listening through the dozens of tracks that had been prepared for them, they could immediately tell, just by sound, which song belonged to which member. DIPLO described the moment. The team would listen and say that one sounds more like a jhope song, and that one sounds more like a JIMIN'S song. And then he added the line that says everything. Those guys have their own style. Read that again. Jimin has a sound so distinctive, so unmistakably his own, that you can hear a track and know instantly that it was made for him, before he's even sung a single note. In the music industry, that is extraordinarily rare. Most artists, even highly experienced ones, can be overtaken by the producer's sound or pulled in the direction of market trends. But Jimin, and each member of BTS, carries an artistic DNA so powerful that even DIPLO, who had prepared 80 songs for them, could see clearly which ones spoke to Jimin and which ones didn't. This isn't about taste. This is about identity. An identity that Jimin has built over more than a decade as part of BTS, and deepened further through his solo work. Album Face in 2023, followed by Muse in 2024, which confirmed beyond any doubt that Jimin is not simply BTS's main dancer and lead vocalist. He is an artist with a vision that is sharp, personal, and completely his own. If you've listened to ARIRANG from start to finish, you already know how emotionally varied and texturally rich the album is, and Jimin's fingerprints are all over it. According to the production credits that were released, Jimin contributed as a songwriter on They Don't Know About Us and Into the Sun, the album's closing track, co-produced with Diplo. Every single member of BTS holds a writing credit on this album, which makes clear that ARIRANG is a genuinely collective work, born from the inside out, not a label product polished by outside hands. And what about Jimin's actual vocal performances across ARIRANG? In Billboard's track-by-track ranking of all 14 songs on the album, music writers gave special attention to the track 2.0, one of the album's most powerful statements about who BTS is now, who they've grown into. In that song, Jimin's expanded vocal tone in the chorus was singled out as a standout moment, proof that he can anchor hip-hop adjacent production just as convincingly as he anchors a ballad. That is not a small compliment. That is a statement about artistic evolution. Jimin, known for years for his soft, emotionally charged tenor, the voice behind Serendipity, Filter, and the historic Like Crazy, has now demonstrated that he can hold ground in production territory that typically belongs to an entirely different kind of artist. And then there's Hooligan, a rap track that blends string arrangements with the sound of clashing blades, described by The Hollywood Reporter as one of the most sonically interesting tracks on the entire album. BTS's vocal line, Jin, Jimin, V, and Jungkook, bring their voices to the chorus, creating something that merges melodic beauty with raw, aggressive energy. The result is something that has never existed anywhere in BTS's discography before. Now let's talk about something deeper. Because for years, there's been a lazy narrative circulating outside the K-pop community that K-pop artists are label products who have no real control over their music, that they sing songs chosen by others, perform choreography built by others, and project a concept decided by executives. And then along comes someone like Diplo, someone completely outside the K-pop ecosystem, with no reason to sell BTS to anyone, and says plainly and directly that they wrote basically every piece of every record on the record. Their ideas, their concepts, every single artist with a writing credit. Jimin joined BTS with only 6 months of trainee experience, the shortest of any member. He came in as a dancer, not a vocalist. He had no formal vocal training at the time of his debut. And yet, after more than a decade of relentless work, he has become one of the most creatively distinct forces in the entire group. Japanese music outlet Real Sound once wrote that Jimin's voice finds something new with every single release, and that his singing is every bit as powerful as his dancing. Diplo didn't just see that, he felt it in the room, and he said so to the world. The numbers that followed the album's release make everything even more undeniable. ARIRANG dropped on March 20th, 2026, and within its first week, it had earned 641,000 album equivalent units in the United States alone. That's the biggest first-week number for any group album since Billboard began tracking by units in December 2014. BTS's biggest sales week ever, and a new record in the history of the Billboard charts for any group. Full stop. The album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. Lead single Swim shot straight to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming the 7th BTS song to top that chart. And it didn't come alone. 13 additional ARIRANG tracks also debuted on the Hot 100 in the same week. On its first day, all 14 tracks occupied the top 14 spots of Spotify's global chart. Day 1 streaming totals hit 110 million, a record for any album released in 2026 so far. Rolling Stone awarded the album 4.5 stars. The UK edition of the same publication gave it 5 stars and called it K-pop perfection. The BTS comeback concert live-streamed from Gwangwoman Square in Seoul drew 18.4 million viewers globally on Netflix, hitting the top 10 in 80 countries and reaching #1 in 24 of them. And through all of it, Jimin stands as an inseparable part of the collective identity that made it all possible. To really understand why DIPLO'S recognition of Jimin's artistic identity means what it means, you have to go back to where this story starts. Park Jimin was born on October 13, 1995, in Busan, South Korea. He entered the world of contemporary dance in school and was accepted into Busan Arts High School as the top-ranked student in the modern dance department. That's where his life changed. A teacher saw his talent and recommended him for an audition at Big Hit Entertainment. He made it. His training period was just 6 months, the shortest in BTS. And on June 13, 2013, Park Jimin debuted with BTS. In the years that followed, Jimin built a reputation as a main dancer who didn't just master technique. He conveyed emotion through movement in a way that made audiences feel the song, not just see it. Real Sound described his dance as something that allows listeners to experience what lives inside the music itself. Then came the solo era. In 2023, he released Face, which debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200, making him the highest-charting Korean solo artist in that chart's history. The single Like Crazy hit number 1 on the Hot 100, a first for any solo male K-pop artist. In 2024, Muse pushed him further into bold, experimental, deeply personal territory. And even beyond music, Jimin proved himself to be extraordinary. During his mandatory military service alongside Jungkook in the 5th Infantry Division, he completed basic training ranked first among all trainees, earning the Division Commander's Award, and was promoted early to Special Class Warrior status. He was officially discharged on June 11, 2025, a person who started everything with 6 months of training. A person who entered the industry without a formal vocal background. And now, over a decade later, an artist whose sound is so undeniably his own that even Diplo, after preparing 80 songs and spending 2 months in the studio, could hear it instantly. Diplo's words in his complex interview add yet another layer to this picture. He described how BTS didn't want a typical pop producer. They wanted someone willing to take chances, someone who could help them build something left of center and rebellious. The goal was always to let BTS's creativity shine, not the producers. And the result is an album that critics have described as the most daring, most mature, most fully themselves BTS has ever sounded. Inside the Netflix documentary BTS, The Return, which premiered on March 27, 2026, audiences got to see exactly what that creative process looks like up close. One of the most striking moments was a debate between the members over how much of the traditional ARIRANG folk melody should be woven into the track body to body. Jimin didn't sit on the sidelines. He spoke directly and honestly, saying that personally, the longer the sample ran, the more uncomfortable he felt about it. No nodding along with the label, no going with the flow. He had a strong artistic opinion and he voiced it in front of Hybe's leadership. That is not the behavior of an idol manufactured by a label. That is the behavior of a true artist. And that's the bigger picture worth sitting with before we close out today. Outside all the numbers, outside all the records, outside all of DIPLO'S praise, something larger is happening. Jimin and BTS are part of a wave that has fundamentally changed how the world hears Asian music. When Diplo says that collaborating with BTS is the highlight of his career after 30 years in the industry, that statement goes far beyond K-pop. It's a declaration that music born from Korea, carrying a deeply Korean identity, built around a 600-year-old folk song, can sit at the very front of global music culture and belong there completely. And Jimin, with his whole journey, from a young man from Busan who entered BTS with 6 months of training, who built his voice from the ground up without formal instruction, who climbed record after record as a solo artist, and who came back with his brothers to make history all over again, is living proof that genius doesn't come from privilege. It comes from relentless work, from dedication, and from the courage to keep being exactly who you are. Diplo saw that inside the studio. And now, the entire world can hear it in every single track of ARIRANG. That's everything for today, guys. The full story behind the confession that sent shockwaves through the music world, and how Jimin and BTS proved they didn't just come back. They came back bigger, stronger, and more themselves than ever before. ARIRANG is available on all streaming platforms right now. The documentary BTS, The Return, is streaming on Netflix. And the ARIRANG World Tour has already kicked off, cities across 5 continents are getting ready to welcome BTS home. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with every ARMY you know. Drop a comment below. Which track on ARIRANG do you think shows Jimin at his very best? See you in the next one. Stay golden, stay purple. Purple Heart.